Well, good afternoon, everyone. Master Chief of the Coast Guard, retired Skip Bowen, current Surface Navy Association East Coast Vice President. I won't repeat everything, all the good things that I said about Surface Navy Association earlier, but please go to the internet, www.navysna.org. Consider becoming a member. This is a great organization. Professional development and mentoring is pretty much the focus, and we want to keep this going. And for the Coasties out there, Coast Guard is one of the largest growing segments of Surface Navy Association, and we definitely want to have you as a member. So I'd like to introduce my fellow moderator, Command Master Chief from District 11. District 11 is pretty much the southern half of the United States on the west coast down, off California, the interior states of Arizona. It's CMC Phaedra Hooker. She is the Command Master Chief for Rear Admiral Brian Penoyer, who couldn't be here today, but he sends his regrets. And I've known her and her husband for a very long time, a long and storied career. And she's a great person to help moderate this today. And later on, we have a couple of sessions where she'll be involved, and I'm pretty excited about that. So we also have on the stage today, on the far right, is Command Master Chief Nia. Is that the way you pronounce it? Nia from Sector San Diego. He's a bosun mate. We're gonna call him a user, a training user today, because all eyes are going to be on CMC Frank Tattoo, who's right to my right. He's the Command Master Chief for Training Center Petaluma. Forcecom, when I called Forcecom, they said, hey, best guy on the West Coast we have to come down and talk training and education is Frank Tattoo. Now, Frank Tattoo, is your dad watching? Did you send him the link?
I don't believe he is.
Okay. So I don't know if he's that technologically adept, but Frank Tattoo is a third generation MKCM. You're not going to find that anywhere, even in the Navy, I think. But I knew his father quite well. He was a legend among machinery technicians, engineers. I'm not sure what the Navy calls them, but it was always a pleasure, and I've got to know his son, Frank Tattoo III today, and I don't think that Forcecom is wrong. He's going to be a great rep for training and education. Now over here, I don't know if you could see it, but folks in the audience, if you have a question, please ask the questions through the app. And the reason why you want to do that is because we're not supposed to be sending a mic around because of COVID restrictions, and we want you to use the app. And plus, if you use the app, I can actually see it up here, and I will repeat the question for our folks up here. So we definitely want questions. If you want to say, hey, Frank, you know, something about Petaluma housing or something like that, he's also the man to talk to. So don't be shy. So with that, Phaedra, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything to add. I'm ready to get started talking about this training.
So Frank, why don't you kick us off then? So when you talk about Forcecom, what has Forcecom, the creation of Forcecom, really 11 or 12 years ago, brought to the Coast Guard regarding training and education?
You know, Skip, thank you. I had that very same question when I reported to Trace in Petaluma, and really it groups three things into buckets, I would call it, and it's leadership development, then into training, and then assessments. So it really allows the fleet to provide Forcecom a need. Let's say it's a training need. Forcecom has the human performance professionals that can develop a course, do the data needed in order to drive where that course is going to first develop, sustain, and then to evolve as systems and policies drive for change.
So you mentioned human performance technology.
I did.
You know, that's a bad word to me, Frank. You know, those guys, I don't know, we were often at odds when I was active duty, but if you can work with them, I'm glad. No, human performance technology is a way to develop training that'll get you dead on training. It just takes a long time. And as a bosun mate, I frequently had a hard time with with how long training took to be created, especially when there was an emerging need. However, we found a way to coexist, at least during my time. At least as far as I know. I don't know what they said about me after.
I've had those frustrations as well, and it's interesting because the training folks will say training isn't a short-term solution, it is a long-term solution for a demand. So when you start looking at them in those two buckets, you start to understand, okay, if I need to evolve something, if I need something to be sustainable for a period of time, then training is your answer. If it's something that's a short-term issue, training might not be your answer, at least long-term.
Exactly, and I'm realizing, we've never done this before, folks, and I'm realizing my co-moderator can't see any questions that might be coming up, which I have here. So we're not very well strategically placed, but since we don't have any questions yet, let's just talk about Training Center Petaluma. Tell us about it. What do you do there? Who comes there? How long has it been there? I know it's out in a cow pasture out in California somewhere. Tell us about Training Center Petaluma.
So Training Center Petaluma is actually a Navy or an Army listening post, and that drove all the way up until 1941 when the Coast Guard actually took over. So we just hit our 50th anniversary of being a Coast Guard training center. We train 7 ratings of the 20 plus in the Coast Guard, and we have about 35 C schools that go with that, those 7 A schools. We are out in the middle of a cow pasture, about 850 acres. We call it a ranch. That is that really allows for an opportunity to both train and to be innovative with the amount of space that we have in some of our base initiatives with renewable energy, with partnerships with the local farming district on some of the land that we lease out. So it's a unique opportunity in that area, but a beautiful place to live, work, and train.
And how has the training system handled the COVID pandemic? I know around December, I'm part of a group which is the Training Center Cape May alumni. Training Center Cape May, for those who are listening, was the Coast Guard's only recruit training facility. We used to have one on the West Coast at Alameda. We don't anymore. It all happens at Cape May. So we have an alumni group that supports Training Center Cape May. And I know I was called by the folks there, the command master chief, in December because they had the place on lockdown for several weeks. And some of the recruits, not all of them, but I guess several companies, couldn't leave the barracks. So what we did as an alumni group, we bought them a whole bunch of widescreen TVs and a bunch of movies to watch, at least so they could fill their time while they're in the barracks. They couldn't even go outside, I understand. But so I know that you evolved after those moments as a training system. How did it go?
Yeah, so and that's I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in because I get to see how each entity responded to that within the training center family at Petaluma. And you have those, the staff that really innovated in the space and changed some of those classrooms. Some portions of the classroom ended up going on the virtual side of the house, where we're evolving in that sense. You have the chief's mess really hopped in to think of those innovative ways, leaning on some of the restrictions that we have. Obviously, being in California, being in Sonoma County, all those rules came into play with Coast Guard restrictions, and then with the state as well. So leveraging their expertise, they were able to find a way to yes on a lot of different activities to help boost morale for the student body and those that live at Trace and Petaluma. The other entity is the student body. When you put these restrictions in play, they're the most affected by it. But to see the level of resiliency that came from that special group of folks, it gave me some level of resolve, understanding that our young folks today, we have a good group of young folks out there that, we look at this pandemic as right now. A couple years ago, it was a government shutdown. Maybe a little bit time before that, it was Hurricane Katrina or September 11th. these group of folks that went through this pandemic in this training environment are building that resiliency for that thing of tomorrow. So I'm super excited and proud of that group especially.
So we have the Sector San Diego Command Master Chief up here. I remember being at Station Marathon in 2005, and I received a recruit from Training Center Cape May that came straight from Cape May, couldn't pass the physical fitness. And I was not happy with the training system at that time. And in fact, I became the Master Chief of the Coast Guard shortly after, and we during those times, 2006 to 2008, they massive change in the curriculum, and a lot of it, of course, was focused on a lot more physicality. So how do you feel about the training system as a user, as a person that is getting those, not only the recruits, but the technical folks that you have in your command? Do you feel like they're adequately trained? Do you feel like that you're getting a good result out of the training system?
Well, yes, to put it shortly. We're having great results from all the training that we're having. It's definitely evolved from whenever I come up, and just so we know, that story, somehow he led into that and calling out my name. I didn't show up and couldn't pass the PT test. I've always been able to pass the PT test, so to make sure that's clear. But no, everyone is arriving from A school now, who's going to C schools. We hear nothing but great accolades, and just they come back very proficient in what we sent them for. There's always hindrances when it comes to training. There's always training gaps we find when we're building new training, or when you take something that is operational and you put it in a classroom, you're always losing something dynamic. And a lot of our courses have really tried to adjust to that, in particular some of your law enforcement classes, some of the small boat handling and tactics classes have really stepped up and decreased that gap, so we're getting boots on the ground, ready sailors from training that I've seen so far and what I hear from field level commanders. In
your sector, I mean, you're on the border.
Yes.
So like Station San Diego, there's pursuit coxswains, there's, so that's an additional level of training that's needed above, say, what are traditional coxswains and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so for your ground action force here on the MBL at the station is required for basic coxswain, pursuit coxswain, and tactics coxswain, just to meet all the requirements, demanding requirements of this AOR that we have. So it's extra schools they have to go to in different places in order to achieve those certifications. And the members we're getting back, from what I hear and what I see from the ground force units, are very capable.
And much of that training that we just talked about, we have a special missions training center that's in Camp Lejeune, and it's a joint training center with the Marines and the Navy. And
yeah, there's one section in Camp Lejeune, there's another one over by FLETC for small boat units and tactics. There's other advanced interdiction tactics for small boats. So there's a myriad of places they go for them. But yeah, definitely the joint force is the way to go when it comes to the training, those higher level tactics when it comes to small boat operations.
Aye, aye. And CMC Hooker, from a District 11 perspective, how are you feeling about the training being delivered, whether it be virtually in the COVID environment or held up because of some of the things that have occurred because of COVID, or even some of the current Coast Guard recruiting challenges we're having? How do you feel like that things are going?
So I'll start by kind of going back to what you said, how frustrated you were with receiving a non-rate from boot camp, and they can't pass the PT test, and they should be able to, and I know that you fixed that. But what I like to remind our OICs and COs is that, what you get from Cape May is a basically trained, physically fit individual. So you're not getting a petty officer. So some of that is, I ask our leaders to manage their expectations with regard to the product coming from Cape May. They're doing their level best, even throughout COVID, to send out, members to come into our workforce. But there's a job for us to do once they get out here, is to continue that leadership. We can't expect them to know how to go into DA and do all the work or file their travel claims. That's why we have sponsors, that's why we have XPOs and other leaders to help them through with that. So I have a lot of confidence and faith in our training centers, and I know that they're doing really, really.
Oh no, they were working very hard. It was the curriculum.
Yes. Yeah.
No, Right, so I'm the Master Chief of the Coast Guard. I'm like a month. I used to go to units and I'd say, I'd do all hands and I'd say to the group, hey, Seaman Smith, if you were like the commandant for the day, what would you change? And actually, it was up here in D11. This kid says, well, I'd make boot camp tougher. And I'd said, really? Because I'd been thinking about that person we'd gotten directly from boot camp at Station Marathon. And he says, well, what do you mean by that? And he says, well, I was sleep deprived, I was yelled at a lot, and I got a lot of classes on things that half of which I didn't feel like I even really absorbed, but I gained weight and I was less physically fit when it was over. So I said, So I went and checked on it, and it was kind of like that. It wasn't don't get me wrong, it wasn't the company commanders. They were working hard with the training product that they were giving. But we did a complete refit on that entire curriculum. A lot of those human performance technology people were not happy, but we made it happen.
It's okay to shake the tree every now and then.
So we have a question from Brad Brunall from the Coast Guard Cutter Midget. How was Forcecom and DCMS in general poised to address rating vacancies, most recently BMs and CS in the fleet? Also, how's the Coast Guard bringing in the quantity of non-rates needed to grow the service and cutter community? Frank.
Wow, that's a great question, and something that we're looking at, right? And I think we look at, we're short 700 non-rates in the Coast Guard right now. That isn't any different from a year ago, right? But the difference right now is that we have non-rates that are not put in for A school. And if you look at Mission Ready Workforce 2030, one of the initiatives within that is, evolving the training as a whole. And some of the things that, and it's interesting, and Bosamates led the way on this one in Yorktown, and that is the rate apprentice program. And you talk about these qualifications that young men and women are getting while they're at stations as a non-rate. It's allowing them now to go into a specific course for other members that have the same certification to do an expedited training. So that shortens down their training time away from their units and puts them back into the fleet as capable BM3s. So there's programs like that. We look at culinary specialists. We have a lot of initiatives to get folks that have culinary degrees into the service as well. That's another program that we're leveraging to try to get more that's out there. And there is we did go through a lockdown period, and there are some folks that are out there that don't want to put their name on A school lists because they feel like the tracings are locked down. And I'll tell you firsthand, we are not locked down. We're open for business. 2020, we trained just short of 1,300 members. When we look at a training center, we look at, especially on the A school list, we look to train about 10% of the fleet, and that's right in that area. But we are open for business. All of our facilities are open, from the gym to the MWR to off-base Liberty. We are ready and capable. Send your non-rates.
I'm assuming that you're increasing throughput at Cape May.
So on Cape May's side of the house, the recruiting command is actually doing a really good job. Those numbers have increased. That did get reduced down for a period of time, and at one point it stopped, but now that's rolling pretty good. We really need for those that are out in the fleet to get folks interested in a rating of their choosing and jump on board. We're ready to train.
That sounds good. And so for the folks out there, what I got out of the question is I think the Coast Guard has kind of revived the Everyone is a Recruiter program. What are they calling it now?
Everyone is a recruiter.
Oh, really? Yep. Okay, so they're calling it Everyone is a Recruiter program. And, get out there, recruit. Hey, I have 4 children, only 1 came in the Coast Guard. But hey, I still call that a win.
That's right.
And he is doing well. He's an MKC, at EPO at a station. Yeah, I know. I was a BOSA mate. I don't know how it happened. He went down the wrong. But so get out there and please, because the Coast Guard does need good people right now, and whether it be growing the cutter community, which we talked about last session, or anywhere else in the Coast Guard, there is a definite issue with these rating vacancies, and I'm sure that's happening on the midget, which is why Brad is asking this question.
And I'd just like to add to that, right? not only are we, wanting members to come into our organization, we want to retain, but if you have a member who's in who wants to get out and do great things, let's try to keep them in our reserve force, because we also need to make sure that we build our reserve force as well.
So are there any bonuses or positives that are coming? I mean, I remember people used to get a commandant's letter of commendation or something for bringing it in.
Yes, so if you recruit, help, the person has to finish boot camp, and then the person who helped them join and told them about the Coast Guard will get a letter of commendation from.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's still 1 point on the service-wide?
Exactly.
You got to do it, folks. That could be a lot.
Yes.
No, it sounds good. So when we're talking about, why don't you do a rundown of all the training centers and really what, I know you can't speak for the other training centers, but you do know a lot about them. This guy's practically made for Training Center Yorktown. The Training Center Yorktown CMC is quite a tough individual. I'm a little bit afraid of her, so I shouldn't say that too much. But I was telling Tattoo this morning, why aren't you at Yorktown? Well, it's because she's there, and she'd punch him out if he tried to take over there. So he had to come to Petaluma. But can you give us a little bit of rundown on the training centers?
So, when you look at, Trace in Petaluma is most of your support in half your tech ratings that are out there. When we look at IT, ET, OS, and then SKs, YN, CSs, HSs. Yorktown has the other larger half of it, which is, the MKs, DCs, EMs, MSTs, GMs. So when you start looking at those, and then you have your aviation branches that kind of branch out with your HEC, Mobile and Elizabeth City. So you have training centers that are specific, that have A schools, and then you have your branches that go out. And when you start talking about the MLE Academy, they really branch out to all your regional fisheries schools that branch out. So we're really quite large in the sense of, if you look at what Forcecom has within its sphere of impact. And I was new to the training center, so this is my first training center to see from this perspective. And I can tell you, I'm in awe. There's some aspects of it that I wasn't too sure of. And Skip, you may mention some frustrations that you have. Now that I'm on the inside, I'm behind the curtain, and I see how the sausage is being made, there's an understanding with that. But there's also a portion where having an MK in Petaluma with a lot of the support ratings, it gets me in the room to ask a lot of questions, like why? Why is it this way? And how do we get to yes? So I find it very interesting to be within the training realm in Petaluma, because it gets me in that area. I failed to mention also that the Chiefs Academy is also in Trace in Petaluma, which is another awesome opportunity to have all the new chiefs coming through Petaluma and having that experience. And what you will not find on the brochure, right, is that opportunity for all these young chiefs to talk with the aspiring A school students that want to be in their position one day. And I was at lunch at the galley last Thursday, and I saw all the Chiefs Academy students that are spread out on in the galley with each of the different A schools. And then there's a mentoring that's happening on the Trace-in organically. It's not forced. So it was an awesome sight to see. But we talk about training as one aspect of a training center, but there's a lot of things that happen on those off times in between, building somebody professionally, building somebody personally, and building somebody spiritually. It's really holistically a great place to be.
So I know that the leadership, sort of the start to finish, is a passion of yours. Actually, it's a passion of everyone up here. But you were talking about it a little bit. So I'm going to ask you, Fireman Tattoo. You are the commandant for the day. How are you going to change the Coast Guard leadership training for the enlisted workforce to make it more effective throughout the whole panorama, from recruit training to the time a member retires?
That's a great question. And I'm certain to get myself in trouble. But as as an MK, unscripted.
tattoo.
This is what you're going to get. So I would love to see a complete overhaul of enlisted leadership continuum, starting from boot camp into A school, and then continuing on with a more robust program. When we start looking at the ALP for those folks going through A school, this is their first taste of real leadership type training.
Now for those that are listening, you just use an
apprentice leadership program. My apologies. That's about 5 days, right? And then we look at our E5s that go through their next mid-level leadership training called LAMS, which is another 5 days. It isn't until you're a chief petty officer, until you actually get a robust training program that's 4 weeks, and we're constantly fighting on keeping that long of training for our chief petty officers. So if you're a first-class petty officer, you only have 10 days of training. You're leading the largest group of folks within your shops. I would like to see a more robust program from cradle to grave within the organization to invest into our folks in leadership, but building within that to make good managers.
So I'm the commandant, and I tell you that you're never going to get that from a resource perspective. So how are you going to make it happen with not all the resources you need?
That's a great question. I believe everything is successful within the organization, and starts within the chief's mess. We have a strong chief's mess that can lead through some of these gaps and get programs in place. I think we can show that it's a program that is worth the Coast Guard's investment. So if we get something rolling in that sense, I don't want to bore you with it now, but I did do a 50-page paper on this. I came slightly prepared. It's what my capstone was in my master's program. So it's something that I feel passionately about, and I look at myself. I'm at 22 years in the Coast Guard. You want to ask me what do I want to accomplish in the Coast Guard? That's what I want to accomplish. Persistence beats resistance.
So you had mentioned earlier sort of a hybrid between in-person, which is resource intensive, and some online learning. So
I do like the six-week model where you have a blended, where it's a 4-week online, 2-week residential. And I look at an online portion of it. I accomplished both my bachelor's or my master's degree and bachelor's degree online, while in leadership roles as an engineering petty officer, as an engineering petty officer, and a collateral duty badge into my first badge job. So it's possible, it's out there, right? The access to education is more than it's been ever before. And knowledge goes to the seeker, and I feel like if we have that option available for folks, we can get there. We've been training our whole career for that. If you've studied for a board, if you've studied for the service-wide, these are things that you've already prepared yourself, and you're more than capable to be successful within the online college realm, and I think we could transfer that over to our leadership training in the Coast Guard.
So you talked about you have a bachelor's and a master's degree, which I think that every enlisted person is, of course, officers are going to have that by dint of the fact that they're commissioned officers. But enlisted folks, by and large, are not required to have it. First of all, why do you think that's important? I'd actually like to hear that from all of y'all. And second, I'd like to hear an update if anybody has any thoughts, because the Coast Guard is a part of the Navy Community College effort that's going on.
Okay. My first up the bat on it. So my first drive to get my bachelor's degree is I started it before I came in the Coast Guard. I got 2 years into it, and then it wasn't until 9 years later that I actually had the opportunity, not until I was a chief, to really buckle down and figure out the process on how to get there. Initially, I didn't look at it as a career builder. I didn't look at it as something I wanted to do for after the Coast Guard. I looked at it as I had 3 young kids that I want to show them, because they're not going to listen to what you say, right? They're going to watch what you do. So I wanted to show them it is tough to get a degree while working a full-time job and having a family. So, and in that pursuit, it led to an opportunity to go to the Joint Special Operations Force Senior Enlisted Academy, which led to an opportunity to get my master's program. off of credits earned through that course. So they gave me 12 credits toward a strategic leadership degree, and I was a third of the way done. And I thought I would be crazy if I didn't take advantage of that opportunity while also leveraging tuition assistance to get it. So it was one thing that led to another, but the opportunities that it presents is amazing, because I think opportunities pass all the time. Whether we're prepared enough to take advantage of it is a whole different story. So I feel if I'm continuously preparing, when those opportunities present, I can take advantage of them.
CMC Hooker, what do you think?
So, agree. I am working on it, but mine is more for personal reasons, because I want to get my degree, not necessarily because, you know, it'll help me out in my career or that I want to do something after the Coast Guard, because quite frankly, I don't. I'm going to probably hang out by a beach after I retire, but it's more for personal fulfillment. So I always encourage my folks to take the time to pursue their higher education, because it is important. Whether you're doing it for career reasons or to set an example for your children, or you're doing it to fulfill a personal goal, it's exceptionally.
I'll be wrapped up here in a couple classes, so by January I'll have a couple degrees. But something I'm going to mention that, you know, it's funny. So, Master Chief don't have a degree. I'm almost having a degree. You finally started when you were a chief, and Master Chief now you have a master's degree, and you hear that a lot now within the Chiefs Mess. I hear that people don't have degrees or they're just starting, and whether it be from the technology we had when we first came in, the opportunities weren't there, or we were just pirates when we come in the Coast Guard.
Pretty much.
But now I have seen more at subunits when I do visits to my subunits and when I've been in commanding units, where I've seen more members come in with college degrees and who are continuing on with their education while they're breaking in, learning what the Coast Guard does, learning their missions. I see more aspirations of people earlier in their careers, whether, I don't know if I had that or just the opportunity wasn't there that it is now for the technology we have. But I've definitely seen more of an involvement of that in the Coast Guard, and I think it's great. I think it's awesome as people progress and do that, because you know, I really would like to see more opportunities for our members to get continuing education, to get these other grants that we have the opportunities for, and they are expanding. That we have to the enlisted workforce, like the officers have for opportunities. We are getting some within the enlisted force, which is great. I would like to go back to one thing that you mentioned, and Frank, you talked about with the leadership programs. You know, Skip, you mentioned, hey, you know, walk me through the leadership continuum that we have building up throughout the Coast Guard. And we all know that every service is different. Navy has their own thing. Army has a very robust, every advancement rank, promotion rank. There's another leadership school attached to it, up to the, of course, the Sergeant Major's Academy, which is 10 months. And we have four seats at that the Coast Guard has that we can send people to. But I think a lot comes down to the organic leadership roles by the geographic commanders on making opportunities that they have around, or decisions, whether they create some type of leadership for them. They build the team here. Luckily, it's a great area with partnerships that I have. So I've got seats that I send members to, like the corporal's course for E5s through the Marine Corps. It's kind of a handshake deal that I send people through. They don't get nothing out of the Coast Guard, but other than a joint experience and some leadership experience on what it is. You know, some of the opportunities I had with the joint training, leadership training has been phenomenal, and it's really the way of the future. If we can't do it in the Coast Guard, which you're right, like the Admiral looking at it like, we can't fund it, we don't have the resources to do it, well, the DoD does. Mm-hmm. And I think making the right deals with them and getting our members involved, whether it be putting instructors out there to really help out build a robust joint force, which is the way of the future.
That's a really great point. I was a BOSA mate, and I'm too busy. One, I'm too busy to do this. Two, all the YNs and SKs use up all the TA. But then I found the Sergeant Major's Academy, and they made me go to college for 10 months. Yeah. And then I thought, why stop there? I'll get my master's. And you know, when I got out of the Coast Guard, I went to work for a company in the Beltway. That it's a great company. I don't work there anymore because I got kind of stolen away from them. But first job in that company was they said, all right, we got to pick out some workers, and we want to employ some people, and look at these resumes, tell me who you think we should hire. So I went, but I wasn't even allowed to look at the pile of resumes, and some of them were really good people. This was the war years. People coming out of the desert with all sorts of skills and experience, but I couldn't even consider those folks just because they didn't have a degree. And you know, for the job that was needed, and I'm not saying all jobs, I mean, if you want to be a high-paid engineer, you might have to go some big school of engineering, but you definitely need, in order to be considered for a lot of things on the outside, when you retire or get out of the Coast Guard or the Navy, you have, or you should, it's the best to have a degree. I mean, you could just, do knuckle dragging work the rest of your life, or get that degree and maybe move up pretty quick. So thank God I went to the Sergeant Major's Academy. That changed my life, there's no doubt about it. We do have a question from the audience. This is Casey Dennis from ATO San Diego. It's generalized for stations. Most rates have a waiting period before a non-rate can put their name on an A school list. With that, the unit has to outfit these non-rates with rescue and survival gear. Cold weather units, does it make sense to allow them to go to A school once reported or after boot camp, have a career at boot camp? Non-rates that want to be a BM or MK at a station should be allowed to come back to that unit if they desire. Overall, might save money and keep continued continuity of training. Second question, Coast Guard needs to create better accreditation system for members that go to C schools, advancements, and qualification. Did you get all that, Frank?
Yeah, I think I did. So, you know, I think when you look at, you know, we're leaning toward those directions, right? And I think we have to get outside the box on some of these restrictions that might have led to previously somebody who is qualified at a station, went to A school, went somewhere else. So with that program that I talked about earlier, that rate apprentice program, RAP, that allows that person to go back to it. So we're already leaning into those, moving into the future of thinking outside the box and evolving to be able to both see that. Because I was one of those people that have felt that going, you know, being at a station and you outfit somebody with their SAR bag, and next thing you know it, they're off to school, and and trying to get reimbursed for that or try to get that gear back, it was always tough, right? So I know, especially Trace in Yorktown is leading the way on that, but we're getting to that. And the second question again,
The second question was the Coast Guard needs to create a better accreditation system for members that go to C schools for advancements and qualifications. What I think they're talking about is a better way to keep track of it so that they can later use it for Coast Guard experience to maybe get that college.
Absolutely, and I think we look at like the Coast Guard credentialing program with CG Cool, right? That's for outside stuff, and we're getting there, and that's another leveraged opportunity for folks to use the program to fund their certifications. But I think we're also starting to look at, oh gosh, what is that? I know you raised your hand.
I was going to ask a question. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that the audience won't be able to hear you, so you have to do it that way, or just say it to me and I'll repeat it.
So the first one is more like the same. I've been to units, because that's our approach. I've been to units where they have a pool of non-rates that don't want to go post-care MK, but they got to qualify and they can't go to school for 4 months. Doesn't make sense. It's a lot of money wasted. So what do we do? They have to allow them to do this stuff, or because their rates aren't critical enough for them to jump ship. And then I'll try to say I have like maybe a career fair at boot camp for that person, recruit yourself and everything. The second one for me, because I'm going back to college, I'm in my senior year. My JST and everything I've done, they initially gave me like 50 credits and I had prior to college. Luckily, passed through that I gave me my senior year. But so many of my things didn't come across. Okay, I think that's what we have a bad time with accrediting a lot of our advances, a lot of our schools. I know it takes a while, but that's a good retention. We know that's what rating up, that we're actually getting something closer to a degree versus having to start all over for 4 years and trying to get that degree if we get something. So being able to get in sooner, maybe go into a junior or senior year, or have somewhere where you get an AA at
So we're getting there. So we teamed up with Mill Gears to now get what your job description is at each point in the Coast Guard to translate over to the outside world. And then, you know, when you look at accreditation and stuff like that, they're working with RKMs right now, the rating knowledge manager, to align those taskers that you need for advancements to align with that as well, working through Mill Gears. So Mill Gears, it isn't the end all be all, but it's getting closer to that. So I know that's an initiative right now.
I also know that CG1 is working to create a different system than what is currently out there to track training, which is what you need when you get to the end of it and you want it for the purposes that you just described. And so they are working on that. There's things that the Navy uses that some amazing benefits. And I was just talking to somebody. I think the Coast Guard's looking at that really closely because they don't have to recreate the the software. They just have to.
They need to bump, I know they bumped TA, but they should be matched up with Marines and everybody else that's like 4,400. You know, I think across the board, TA should be across the board.
But if we did that, then fewer people would be able to get it. So if we, you know,
It took me 20 years to go back.
So, and that's difficult, especially when people didn't create the page 7s or whatever back in the day. So we have a question from the audience. This is, I would absolutely, this is actually a lieutenant, I think, that's going to be on our board later, but I failed to get how to pronounce this name. So I'm just going to say lieutenant for CMC VIA. It has been noted that we as the Coast Guard have robust training programs, but a huge issue for maintaining a qualified workforce continues to be retention, with several retention studies identifying a lack of inclusion and diversity as a major factor in retention. In what ways have we started to incorporate inclusion and diversity during our less formal leadership opportunities, such as CCTI and sector-level trainings?
Well, diversity and inclusion is definitely something where the Coast Guard and all the DoD services are really trying to build a more robust program, you know, in order to accomplish this. We really do all we can to try to bring them in. We've created other leadership, inclusion, diversity action groups that we create other opportunities to bring people in to have discussions on how to improve that at a local level. When it comes to some of the larger training level and training, Forcecom controlled training, we don't have much influence over that when it comes to recruiting command and getting members qualified and up to schools. At local geographical units, like where we have some autonomy over here, we create in-house organic groups, and we go out, we really try to solicit all these other members to try and ensure we have a good random sampling of the sector and of all of the classes that we can to promote inclusion, diversity, and to get those aspects to show that for everybody else, to really lead from the front with having those members within that group and getting their ideas so we can promote that to everyone else. And also in the community, we can go out and show that we're trying to do this. We're an organization that wants to promote diversity and inclusion and really bring those into the fold, because it does make us a better service.
She also mentioned CCTI. I think that's really, I've never heard anybody bring that up before. Any changes in CCTI? And, you know, CMC Hooker, feel free to jump in.
yeah, so currently we haven't put in actually anything in place to kind of incorporate the Commandant's Diversity and Inclusion Action Plan into our CCTI program. We just haven't gotten there yet. We're working on a lot of stuff like across the district and at sectors proper. We have like a community of practice for our LIDACs right now. So we have one centralized LIDAC chairperson at district, and then that person works with all of the chair people, the chairs across the district, to make sure that everybody's on the same page with regard to executing Admiral Penoyer's operationalizing the LIDAC. But as far as CCTI, we have not incorporated any of the Commandant's DIAP into that yet. So that's something that, you know, I'm glad that it was brought up, because it is something
you should push that up, because that's really an interesting thought.
It is.
Well, honestly, if we just do it like the Navy and everything else, we just make it mandatory, then everybody's included.
Oh boy.
Which is what I'd prefer to see for CCTI myself.
I couldn't hear what he
He
said, but
said
you're
if we
smiling.
just did it like the Navy and made it mandatory for everybody.
Yeah. Well, this is just a thought. Because the lieutenant is saying that it's a major factor in retention,
Yes.
which also speaks to, how people feel about their supervisors, how they feel about their workplace. And I would say that, leaders across the board cannot be afraid of the words diversity and inclusion, and talk about it with your folks. And have open forums, and let's just talk about these things. And I'll tell you, when people communication is the key to life. You heard it here first, folks. That is going to make things better, just naturally. And when you don't really have to have huge training programs, you just got to incorporate it into everyday life.
No,
That's
Skip,
my take on that.
I want to add to that a little bit, because I think we look at it as D&I is something that we have to do. And it should be something that we have to do, or something that we do. It should be in everything that we do, right? So just like you're talking about, if it's included in everything that you're doing at your everyday, day-to-day, that's that opportunity. How do we affect that locally, right? If we notice something that doesn't fit that bill and can use some changing, that's our opportunity to engage on that process and change it. Sometimes policies need to change, and if there's a policy that restricts somebody due to D&I, that's our opportunity to jump in and make that change. I personally like JEDI, to be honest with you, and that's JEDI, Justice, Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion. If we do that in everything we do, we'll make that change from the inside out.
You're a pretty smart guy. I think you might have your dad beat. Just a.
That
I don't know if he's watching.
I don't have this. I can't fit in his shoes. That guy. He's amazing.
So we are getting close, I think, to a wrap-up time. Why don't we go down the panel and everybody just kind of do some closing remarks. We'll start with Master Chief Nia.
Closing remarks. No, I appreciate you letting me come out and sit up here to talk about it from the user level. When it comes to education and the Coast Guard and what we're doing, I think we definitely leaps and bounds above from where I started, probably I'm sure where we all started, and back when the ARC was there, when Skip was there. But no, it's been a great evolution of what we had with the training and the increases in it and getting better. But we can always improve, and especially leadership. I'm glad somebody brought the leadership discussion up, because we definitely need to improve and move forward with that. And I definitely suggest to everyone else take opportunities at the COOL and of the TA program.
All right, well, so thanks everybody for tuning in and for showing up for us today, and thanks to Master Chief Tattoo and Master Chief Vi and Skip for moderating with me. I just want to say, I'll close with this, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, because the thing that stood out to me was you saying our training centers are open, and that is true. The last Chiefs Academy class I went in and mentored, there were 23 chiefs in that class. There's obviously room for a lot more. So what I compel our COs to do is have your badges, run a report saying what chiefs haven't gone to Chiefs Academy, and then have one-on-ones with those folks to find out if COVID is the reason that they're deciding not to go. And then they can reach out to Master Chief Tattoo or Master Chief Glenn Royce at Chiefs Academy to maybe dispel some of the concerns that they have about going to a training center during COVID. Outside of that, also for our A school students, do the same for them. But outside of that, thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, hey, I'm humbled and honored to be up here, share the stage with you all, and I appreciate this opportunity as well. And Phaedra hit it on the head. We need our workforce to get out and go to that next step, get rated, learn a profession, learn a specialty, go out into the fleet and provide that service and serve your country. It's a great time to do it. If you have questions, I'm all ears. And I don't say I know everything, right? And if there's something that I can change or something I can help affect change, I am the only tattoo left in global. Look me up, send me an email. I don't do Twitter. I do have Instagram and Facebook. I'm not into the TikTok either, but reach out to me. I don't care which method. I'm eager to hear your ideas, and I'd like to try to find a way to implement it.
So that's pretty much it, folks. A lot of interesting things happening. This year of COVID has impacted the Coast Guard training and education system in wide ranges that it's going to take years to really kind of feel out the impacts, because we have a lot more of online training. We have a lot more different ways to deliver training, and some pretty cool things are on when we're talking certification, the COOL program. Great stuff. Get your degree. We talked about that. We had the Navy Community College. You know, if you have not heard about that, look it up. It is very important that you get your education as far as a college degree. I can attest to that with every part of my soul. So now we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back at, I think, 5 minutes after 3 p.m. San Diego time. We've got a great commanding officer in charge cutter panel lined up. We actually have a national security cutter commanding officer, Captain Carmichael, here from the Midget. He's going to take part in this panel. That wasn't part of what was put over, you know, as far as advertisement for this. We've got 2 lieutenants, and we have 2 master chiefs that'll be on this panel. And CMC Hooker and I will be up here peppering them with questions, and I think they'll have some interesting things to say about cutter life in the 21st century. So thank you very much.